How's everyone doing? I guess most of my talk tonight is going to be on the importance of speaking out. I've seen a lot of people stay closeted as an atheist, and it doesn't help the movement at all. It's really detrimental to everything. First, I would like to tell my story for anyone who doesn't even know it. Before my high school graduation, I found out there was going to be a prayer as part of the ceremony, and I knew it wasn't right, and I investigated a little further, and state laws were even in place and had been for 15 years, saying that it was illegal and to have anything more than a moment of silence. And they had been having prayers at football games, graduations, everything. And I knew it had been happening for at least 10 years because my brother still had his pamphlet from when he graduated, and it said that there was an invocation presented by a pastor. I emailed the district superintendent to inform him of the law and the Constitution. I never got a reply, but I was met with a lot of hostility within a day of sending it. A lot of people began to Facebook about it. I even heard some threats on Facebook. It was just a lot of whining about it. They knew they couldn't do anything about it because it was against the law, but they would say that I was oppressing them, one person oppressing 15,000 people. They said an atheist shouldn't be allowed to dictate when they can pray, and that I was being unfair to the majority, that I should respect the majority of my classmates. Some threats came. My brother received a text saying that I was in a lot of danger by staying in town. I don't even know how they got his number. A friend of mine told me that a few things that people were saying around him. He was a closet atheist. He didn't want to come out after that. He told me that someone said that they were going to beat me up. So far, that has proved to be hollow threats, even in the Jessica Alquist case. And someone made a Facebook post saying that I should be killed. And one person commented suggesting that I be shot. I've learned about a lot of this stuff. Even JT, he knew a lot of the story. But I just recently learned a few more details from people that I've talked to that were around at the time. Needless to say, I was a bit scared at the time. After that, after I sent the email and everything just went to hell, my parents came home. Neither of them even talked to me. They left quickly after, and I found out later that they left to attend a rally formed against me. It was staged at a local church. Obviously, they found out. Days went by, and neither of them spoke a word to me. Just maybe here and there, I would ask them where they went, and they told me that they went to the rally. That's about all they said, really. I knew they wouldn't give me a ride to graduation or anything, so I went to stay with my brother, who was in town. My sister came to town from Dallas and drove me over there. I can still remember that feeling when I found out I had so much support from across the world. People from England, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere in the United States, Canada, everywhere, would message me on Facebook saying that they supported what I was doing. Theists even said that I was doing something very good for them because they too are oppressed by a Christian majority. Talked to the Freedom from Religion Foundation. They offered me legal support if I needed it, which was really good for me because I didn't have the money for a lawyer. I didn't even know how to contact the ACLU or anything. But my brother got a hold of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and they gave me legal advice and had their lawyers send emails and such to the school. On class night, it's pretty much a night where they award scholarships and things. We all met in the auditorium, and as I walked by, one of the teachers mumbled under her breath that an atheist shouldn't even be allowed to graduate. I wasn't really worried about that. I'd rather not insult her intelligence up here. During the ceremony, a student speaker spontaneously invoked a prayer. It was planned. It was in her papers and everything. She wrote the prayer down. But obviously the school would deny looking at those papers to see that there was a prayer in it, because then they would be liable. But she prayed. Everyone applauded, including my mother, who attended, and I didn't even know that she was going to attend it. The next day, we went to the graduation. I took my place in line. The FFRF put me in my right place in line. They were going to have me graduate last. As I stood in line, people around me were talking about a fight that was going to happen after graduation, and they would nod in my direction, so more hollow threats. I didn't even care at this point. I brushed it off and went about the ceremony. But in the middle of the ceremony, a student speaker, again, a different one, spontaneously, again, quote, invoked the Lord's Prayer. I found out that this was what they went to the rally for. They were trying to find a loophole in the system to try to push their prayer onto everyone anyway, without having the school endorse it. They prayed in unison, the entire audience of thousands of people and everyone around me as I graduated. They all prayed. I even attempted to explain why it was wrong of them to do that to other people, but they didn't care. These people that were praying, it was a painful thing to see when everyone that you've gone to school with, you've formed relationships with, you've been friends with for 4 years or more, suddenly turn on you. There's an indescribable feeling of alienation there. I didn't know how to react. I just sat there stunned. It felt like the last 4 years of high school had never even happened. The graduation ceremony was far from the unifying ceremony that it was supposed to be. It was supposed to unify the class of 2011, and it ended up feeling more like a fight between theism and atheism, which is not what I intended. And to top it all off, I looked up into the stands and saw my parents praying along with them. I kept my composure and stayed seated while they prayed, and then I walked when my name was called. When I got up, I tried to ignore the whispers, but it was hard. Someone said, "He should burn." Another said, "An atheist shouldn't be able to graduate," same as that teacher that seemed to be an ongoing theme with them. it was over, and I went back to my brother's house and stayed another night. And as I tried to figure out how I'd go back home and face my parents, it was hard to think about. And the next day, I found out that my things were thrown outside of my home. It was at that point that I knew that there was no going back. You can't fix that. I got into the car with my sister and came to Texas with her. I'd like to point out that despite all these bad things, I see it as a positive thing now, because this one instance of me speaking out sparked something bigger than I thought. If they had just let the graduation go as normal as it should have been, and didn't include the prayer, didn't make a big deal about it, it wouldn't have been such a big deal. There would have been, I would never have had to out myself, because everyone decided to start crying about it, and they pointed fingers at me because I was the only out atheist in the entire class. But multiple people have told me that because of this, I directly influenced them to do the same at their high school and college graduations. For one, a guy named Stephen Joyner, he recently protested the prayer at his college graduation in, I think, South Carolina. Atheists in Bastrop that I never knew of contacted me to thank me for doing what I did. I thought I was the only person in the entire town that was an atheist. Some even came out to their friends because of this. I saw one come out to their friend on Facebook just because of this whole thing, because he supported me. And their friends were saying, "How could you support him?" And he said, "Because I am an atheist." But the biggest thing to come out of this happened just days ago. An anonymous atheist contacted Bastrop High after they found out they were going to try to do a prayer again. And they told them that they would contact the authorities if they tried it. Not in at least 10 years had anyone stood up to the Christian majority in that town, not until I did it, which set an example for others. This is exactly why you speak out. It's why it's important to speak out. I thought I was alone in Bastrop, and because I hadn't spoken about my beliefs, and this is the problem with a lot of people. They stay closeted. They don't think that talking about their beliefs to other people or their friends or being an out atheist is worth it. If you're hiding your beliefs because you're afraid of what your friends might think, or afraid you'll lose your friends, even, you're doing nothing to help the secular movement. I know secular groups that they just sit around in a room and talk about problems, but they never ever go out and tell other people about what they believe. They let the misconceptions about atheism go on. I mean, when I was in Bastrop, I had people ask me, I said, "I'm an atheist," when they asked me. And they would say, does that mean you worship the devil? I mean, I had to say no. I had to correct them, because that's what they were being taught in church. I had attended church. I was forcefully pushed into church for 18 years of my life. Even more so after my parents found out I was an atheist. They started forcing me to go even more. And every time I went in there, they would come up with some new idiotic thing to say about atheism that was completely misconstrued. They did not understand what we believe. And they pass that on to kids, indoctrinate them with that belief, and they grow up thinking that. So speaking out, it helps others see that there are people like them. There could be other atheists out there that are in the closet, if you're in the closet, which it was the case in Bastrop. That was the most fundamental town I've ever seen, and I never imagined anyone else being an atheist in that town, not until I started speaking out about it. I found at least one other atheist when I came out as an atheist. And then when I did this thing with the prayer, I told them it could not happen. So many other atheists came to me, and I didn't know there were that many in town. I think the thing that upset me the most about the whole situation, despite my parents, despite getting kicked out, all of that, was that anyone could have done what I did, but they didn't. It had been a law for, at the very least, 15 years, like I said, and they had been doing it as a tradition for at the very least 10 years. Undoubtedly, many other atheists passed through that school and did nothing. I know of at least one. It doesn't take a certain amount of courage to do it, and it doesn't take a certain level of not giving a fuck to do it. It just takes you standing up for yourself and for others and to tell them what they're doing isn't right, because it isn't. Forcing belief on other people or forcing prayer on other people who don't believe the same way as you is not right. How many of you sat through a prayer at your graduation or at football games or something? Why didn't you do anything? Someone give me a reason why you didn't do anything. That would do it. Well, it didn't stop me. I mean, as a student, it's your job to do this. You're the one having to put up with it. You should be the one to try to keep it secular, especially for the people that have to come after you. There's a constant stream of people coming through that school, coming and going. And until someone stands up to the Christian majority, it's just going to keep happening. And as you can see, it happened for a long time with Jessica Alquist. It happened for about 50 years. No one did anything about the prayer until she stood up. When it goes on that long, it becomes a tradition, and they don't want to give it up after that. If someone had stood up the second that the law was passed 15 years ago, they would have had no way of denying that they were breaking the law, and they would have had to stop it right then. It's not just atheists that are having to put up with it too. People of other religions and beliefs have to deal with that as well, because obviously they're not Christians. Christians are the majority in this country for now. It's time we stood up for ourselves and stopped being silent. Thank you.